I'm pretty detached. I'm not going to get emotionally involved. Now, I'm not going to get emotionally involved in it. You know, I've seen a lot of horrific images in Syria, and so I'm with the Free Syrian Army side, and I understand that there are human lives that are being taken on both sides. I went into Syria this time, and I had a list of 3 to 4 stories I was going to do. And, you know, I pitched it, they agreed, I went in. Of course, 90% of the stories I pitched were impossible to do. You know, and, well, why didn't I get this confirmed? Because before I, you know, pitch the stories, it's because, you know, there's a lot of kidnapping involved, so you don't want to give a lot of heads up to the people. Say, hey, I'm coming, I want to do this, that, and the other. You do that 24 hours before you're about to get 12. Normally, I'll do it 10 to 12 hours before I'm going to enter into the country. Because I'm paranoid, I'm cautious. I'm not paranoid, I'm just cautious. And I don't want to give them 5 months advance notice that I'm coming into town. And so when I got there, a lot of the stories I wanted to do were, you know, the mortar factory where they make their weapons off limits. You know, Hajimara in hiding. You know, so those were 2 of the 3, and then the child doctor. Well, one of them died, and then they weren't really giving me much access to this maternity ward. So then, you know, you have to be very open, because stories are always going to present themselves to you daily. You know, it's really, you know, are you open? Is your heart open? Is your mind open to see these stories when they're presenting themselves to you? Because there's stories everywhere, all day long, 365 days a year. There are multiple stories that pass through us, and it's whether we're receptive enough to see the stories that are presenting themselves. So we're walking, trying to go to the Umayyad Mosque, and we run into a sniper, and he says, hey, why don't you come film me? And I said, oh, that's interesting. Why don't we do a story on snipers? And so I had to speak to a bunch of commanders, and I said, you know, I want to do a story on your sniper teams. Is that possible? And they agreed. And so then I asked, you know, I had a certain list of questions that I was going to ask them. You know, I felt, you know, on this story, I wanted to repeat the same questions. You know, when was your first kill? What was it like? Where were you? You know, something that I could never ask an American sniper with the U.S. Marines or the U.S. military. You know, I was able to ask the forbidden questions. And so that was appealing, because they didn't really have any, it was a war. They didn't have this type of secrecy that other, you know, Western nations have with their sniper teams. And not that they were like great snipers, but nonetheless they had scopes. And so then I'm there to tell their story. And so when they're hitting their target, and yeah, it's crazy because I'm making other humans targets, but I'm telling the story, and that's what the sniper is looking at, is a target. And so I'm like, you know, I'm not going to say, what was it like taking his life? I already asked that question. What was it like shooting, you know, when did you make your first kill? But when they're firing their weapon and I'm asking them, did you hit your target? You know, I'm not going to say, did you kill him? I'm just saying, did you hit your target? So I have to make the association I have to step back. I have to go into the sniper's mind, what he's thinking, and try not to bring moral judgment to the story. I'm just trying to report, and I'm not making war sucks. People die. Unfortunately, you know, there's always going to be wars. You know, just because I have a moralistic view on taking human life doesn't mean that my view is going to end the wars of the world. So I don't lose much sleep over it. You know, it's a target, and he hit his mark, and then he prayed, and the story ended. So it was it's terrible.